Hello, friends and family. Another week has passed and it's time for another story. And this time the story is about the walls that came tumbling down. In 1945, at the end of the Second World War, the Soviet Union began to franchise, if you will, other countries of Eastern Europe until they basically controlled all of Eastern Europe, including East Germany. And right at the city of Berlin, the country was divided into two, East and West Germany. And in 1961, the communist side of the divide built a wall. And the wall was not to keep people out, but to keep people in. The Berlin Wall was started in August of 1961. And very soon after it was built to keep the people of Eastern Germany in and not able to escape and get out, it was very shortly after that time that Brother Andrew was one of the first people in his little Volkswagen to go through Checkpoint Charlie, which was the border crossing right there at the Brandenburg Gate in that area. In 1983, the staff of Open Doors Netherlands was having devotions daily, and they were dealing with the story of the fall of the city of Jericho in the Old Testament story, in Joshua. And they were reading about how God told the Israelites to walk around the city every day for 7 days. And on the seventh day, they were to walk around 7 times. And at the end of the 7 times, they were to blow their trumpets and to yell, "The battle belongs to the Lord," and the walls came falling down. And there's a great spiritual song that was written about the walls tumbling down that we often remember. Well, their focus at the time was on 2 areas. One was the Soviet Union, and the other was Romania. And those were the primary countries Open Doors was working on. The other ministries to persecuted Christians had taken other aspects of Eastern Europe so that Open Doors could focus on these 2 areas. Well, the Soviet Union era was causing great challenge to the staff. There were more and more Christians being put in prison. It was more difficult to do ministry there. The Soviet Union was causing all kinds of challenges all over the world. And so the staff began to think, as they did their devotions on the wall of Jericho falling down, that God could do the same thing with the Soviet Union. And somebody had a vision, and I'm not sure it was Brother Andrew, but he certainly espoused and supported that vision when it was articulated. They said, let's ask God. For 7 years, we will pray and ask God to knock down the walls of the Soviet Union and give these people freedom. So they began a prayer campaign with Brother Andrew's blessing, and it was called 7 Years of Prayer for the Soviet Union. And the prayer focus was on Moscow, the center of the Soviet Union at the time. Well, it caught on very, very significantly, especially in the Netherlands, where the prayer campaign began. First of all, the staff designed a logo, which kind of has a hammer and sickle effect, but you can see the 7 years, over the 7 is over the cross, 7 years of prayer for the Soviet Union. Now, nobody except those who had the vision, I think, really could believe that this could happen. I mean, nobody saw it coming. Even as COVID-19 that we're in this year, nobody saw it coming. It was the same with the fall of the Soviet Union. But people began to pray. So they asked people to take 15-minute prayer blocks on a 24-hour clock, 7 days a week. And they filled, just in the Netherlands alone, there were other offices of Open Doors around the world who also had people praying in 15-minute blocks. But in the Netherlands alone, they had a list of people every 15 minutes of every day of the week would be praying for the fall of the walls of the Soviet Union, that God would give freedom to the people of this land and tear down those walls that were keeping them back. Well, they prayed, and they did this for the first 3 years. It looked as though God didn't hear them, wasn't answering their prayers. I mean, the number of Christians in prison when they began the prayer campaign was in the very low 300s that we knew about. These are Christian prisoners that we knew about. And by the end of 3 years of praying for this walls to come down, there were in the middle 300s, 356, I believe it was, who were in prison. So there were actually more people in prison, more Christians in prison in the Soviet Union after 3 years of praying every day about this situation than before. But God does answer prayer, and it was quite amazing. In the middle 80s, as you know, Mr. Gorbachev came to power, and he sought to establish a softer kind of totalitarianism, and he designed things like glasnost, which was openness, perestroika, which was restructuring, but it didn't really help the church at first. But slowly, things began to change. By 1988, when I was able to go with a team from Canada to the Soviet Union, in Moscow particularly, the numbers were beginning to go down, but very slightly. And we were there to appeal on behalf of those Christians who were in prison. And I've had 3 videos preceding this one, 34, 35, 36, all deal with this trip that I was part of in 1988, the year of the millennium of Christianity in the area, to try and appeal on behalf of Christian prisoners. That was 1988. By 1989, things were changing quickly. In fact, I think even without our Canadian trip there, the number of Christians was being reduced, those that were in the Gulag. And the numbers began to decline, and declined more significantly in 1989. But what no one really expected, or almost could see coming, was the fall of the Berlin Wall. In November, number 9, in 1989, that wall came down. No one ever believed that that could really happen. I mean, just a few years earlier, Ronald Reagan had said, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." But no one really expected that it could happen without an incredible battle. Well, it did happen. And we always remember the number 9/11. Well, this was 11/9, the opposite date of 1989, when the Berlin Wall came down and those people of Eastern Germany were free to travel into Western Germany, basically the city of Berlin at the wall, and to enjoy some freedom too. And it was a very joyful time. I mean, people were just so excited. I have a little short video clip. Let me show you this 1-minute video clip of some of the activities that went on then.
Und nichts anderes! Wow. Und nicht das Loch nicht!
wall came down and people were free to go back and forth. And very soon, Germany had decided to be reunited as one country. And that was the beginning of the collapse of the whole Soviet empire. Poland and Czechoslovakia and other countries in the Eastern Europe bloc began to demand freedom and had, in Slovakia, for example, there was the silent candle campaign. People just stood praying with candles as a protest against the totalitarian regime that controlled them. And by 1991, at the end of 1991, the whole Soviet Union had collapsed in. Now, the prayer campaign was scheduled to go from 1984 to 1990. Those were the 7 years of the prayer campaign. And at the end of the 7 years, the Soviet Union collapsed. And it was just marvelous. People were just rejoicing, saying, look what God did. Now, there were many other people praying. It wasn't just the Open Doors people who prayed about this situation. But this is just one specific case that I can document where people believed God for a period of time that he would do something significant to change the world, and not just for them, but for other people and for the freedom of other people. And by the end of 1991, there was no more Soviet Union. There were independent countries. And at a later date, I will tell you about our trip to the Ukraine on the first anniversary of independence, an incredible celebration. But my point today is this: God does answer prayer.